Hello YouTube, thanks for watching. Today we're going to go deep into parameters and update our previous video on what parameters are, how to use them. Let's get into it. Okay, so parameters are a main point in Mozaik for editing and changing a cabinet. It's important to know how parameters work if you want to utilize Mozaik to a high level. So there's three places in which to edit and change parameters. The first place is within a cabinet. So if you just open a cabinet and you hit the parameters tab, this will give you an overview of all the parameters that have been loaded into this cabinet. A parameter in Mozaik is used as a little snippet, and each cabinet you can individually just load it into that cabinet, and then you can edit it manually from there. So that cabinet will independently be changed of its parameters from all the other options. So if you want to load a parameter, these are the ones that are previously loaded into this. You can hit select product parameters. Then you can go through the whole parameters menu and edit and change any of these parameters here. And you can select one, you can select multiple if you hold down shift on your keyboard, click OK. And as you can see, all those ones will get dropped in there. You cannot edit them here. They're going to be grayed out. You have to bring them into the cabinet itself by highlighting them and then dragging them in. Once you have them dragged into the cabinet, as you can see here, you can then edit these values on the side here. So for this cabinet, I'm not going to change anything. I just wanted to show you how to do that. If you want to have cabinets that are preloaded with parameters that you change quickly, such as, let's just undo that. You're going to something like this. So sometimes I do want applied panels, sometimes I do not. So I always want this one added to each cabinet every time I drop it in, just so I can quickly change it without having to load it in each cabinet individually. So if you want to do that, you have to go to your library and then add it in here. If you add the parameter in here, then it will be automatically loaded into that cabinet. That also means if you edit it in the job, it's not going to overwrite that cabinet because those are individually set in each cabinet. So the second is for job parameters. This will change parameters for every cabinet that doesn't have a manual override for each cabinet in one complete job. That includes every room. So if you have parameters that you need to separate, but you want to control them for a whole job, you're going to want to draw them in separate jobs, because if you change the job parameters for one room, all the rooms are going to change with those job parameters. So you're going to go down to Edit, Job Parameters. Another optional way to edit job parameters is this little job parameters tab here. And from here you can go down and edit any of the parameters that are in that same menu. Personally, I find that I use the job parameters menu here just based on the fact that I'm used to using that menu, this particular pop-up menu. So it's just more ingrained in my brain, so I stick with using this menu. You can edit them here, they will change here. It's the same situation going on for both of these. So for all intents and purposes, I'm just going to be showing you how to use it within this menu here. So you can edit and change any of these here now. Any of these can be changed. And then it will update for every room and every job. I'm not going to save them. So there's sort of a hierarchy for parameters. It's basically three tiers. The lowest level would be editing your parameters in a cabinet. That'd be the lowest level. The medium level would be editing it for a job. And for that whole job. It will edit the parameters in there. And the third and most permanent of the changes in parameters would be under your library. So if you go to your library and products, there's a little parameters button right here. So you can click this here, and that will allow you to change your parameters for every job that you draw from now on. So this would be a more permanent, I want to change my parameters permanently forever. That's when you're going to go into this. So what I want to do is go through everything individually. I want to point out that I'm a frameless cabinet maker, so I don't want to make, providing any illusions that, I can do all kinds of cabinets. I don't do face frame cabinets, but I will explain to the best of my abilities of the frame style of parameters as well. So first category we have here, everything's laid out in categories. So the first category is doors. As you can see here, I don't have a construction method for this library that is face frame, so we'll jump into that after. So we'll start with the frameless, and then we'll jump into the face frame after. Now, the face frame parameters are going to be grayed out, so we're just going to skip over those. There are some face frame parameters that are not, such as this. This little question mark is going to be your best friend when you're trying to figure out what parameters are, how they work, what they're actually changing. So what you're going to want to do is, to figure out what each thing is, you're going to go here, select that item, hit the question mark. It's going to give you this pop-up window. I don't know if every single one has a pop-up window like this, but a lot of them do. So this gives you a really great representation of what you're to expect to change once you edit this parameter. Obviously, we're getting the opening height for a top drawer on a face frame cabinet. So if you want your top drawer opening height to always be 6 inches exactly, you would change this to just 6 inches. Then we have frameless top drawer height. So for me, I'm 6 3/4 for my top drawer height. That is the standard height that all my top drawers are. So if you're just dragging and dropping, you'll be able to set your top drawer height automatically based on this parameter right here. Your pair gap, we're going to get the question mark, is anytime two doors are coming together, not the edges, just when a pair of doors meet in the middle, or if you've split your cabinet and you have a split gable here and you have, say, drawers on each side of it. So it's one single cabinet, but two doors are coming together. That's where this pair gap comes into play. For us, we have a 1/8 gap. Frameless reveal top. Frameless reveal top will be the gap from the top edge of your drawer front or door to the top of the cabinet. There's also this kind of handy little open close function here as well. So you'll be able to get into the wall and base parameters as well. Typically Mozaik will make the base cabinets the standard one, and then your wall cabinets will be within its drop down button here. So as you can see here, frameless reveal for a top drawer, or a wall upper cabinet I should say. So you have an upper cabinet gap from the top of the door till the top of the cabinet. Then you have frameless reveal bottom, so that's the same for the base cabinets. This is the bottom of the door to the bottom of the where your toe kick starts. And then the same for the upper cabinet, so gap from bottom of door to bottom of upper cabinet. Then we have frameless reveal side. So this is where the distance affects where your distance on the side of your cabinet is your reveal. So you're getting from the edge of the door to the side of the cabinet for the frameless reveal side. It does change. There's a few other parameters for that, because necessarily you might want a 1/16 of a gap because you have a cabinet on each side, or you might want 1/8 of a gap because you have a full panel on the side of it. So as you can see here, that's where you get, if you have a finished end there. So if you have a finished end on the side, you might want to have less or more of a reveal. This would be if you do not have applied panel there. So if you have no applied panel, maybe you want it flush, maybe you want it to be 0. That's where you would change that. So here we have frameless reveal adjacent cabinet. So that's if you have a cabinet, or as you can see, when 2 doors are sitting side by side, it's giving you an option to increase your gap, or change your gap too if there's a cabinet next to it. Frameless reveal adjacent filler. So this might be where you have a filler. If it was flush, a flush filler, you would want to have 1/8 of an inch gap there. If your filler is a recessed filler, similar to what's showing here, you probably want no gap at all. Frameless reveal applied end. So this would be if you have an applied panel on the end, you might want a 1/8 gap there as well. Frameless reveal mid. This would be between the horizontal gaps between drawers and doors. Inset door reveal. So this if you have a face frame or frameless inset door reveal. So I'm guessing it'd be about 1/8 of an inch. Applied door width adjustment. So this would be if you have an applied door, you may want to add a certain amount to that front edge. If this parameter would be like flush at face or whatever to make it come flush to the face of the door, but perhaps you want to add a 1/16 or an 1/8 for scribing on the wall. I'm not in the middle of my saw blade hole. Okay, so what else we got here? So door outset. Your door outset is your gap from the back of the door to the actual case itself. If you have door bumpers or something like that that are about 1/8 of an inch or 1/16, you might want to add a 1/16 gap there. So that's the category for doors. Now we're going to go on to face. This has a lot to do with the face frame stuff, so a lot of these are going to be grayed out. This is where also you select your construction method. As you can see, I have frameless selected. Wall trim, as we have here, this would be, Mozaik's quite intelligent when it comes to deciding how much extra you want to add for scribing. So if you have a filler against a wall, actually this would be more if you have a face frame and your frame is against the wall, Mozaik can add an additional amount to that style that's connected to the wall so that you can scribe it in. This gives you the option to add beads to your face frame openings. I believe down the road Mozaik's going to allow us to have face frames that are inset that'll just run on the CNC machine, all of it together in one piece. That'll be a nice welcome upgrade, but until that happens, it does have a few options such as this. Also here gives you an option for your profile. You can select which profile you have. It's giving you, you're going to have to go to your door library and your inside frame, and you're going to be able to select there what type of bead profile you want. You can draw it yourself. And you're going to also be able to get a linear foot for each bead. Now we're going to go to ends. So this would be skin finished ends, is if you have a, say, a 1/4 inch skin or whatever you add to the side of your finished ends, you would change this to yes. If your base cabinet ends to the floor, you would change this to yes. So if you have a toe kick notch that goes to the floor, you would have yes. Otherwise, your cabinet is just the case. This would be the option if you have adjustable legs. Tall cabinet ends to the floor, same thing, but just with a tall cabinet. This for us is the one that I add into each cabinet because I like to be able to change this. Gives you an option for applied doors, panelized ends, or no door. So as you can see, this is where the side of the cabinet's integrated into the cabinet. That's as a finished end. This one has an applied door on the side. And then you have a panelized end, which is essentially a door that has been modified to be attached to the cabinet. Then we have applied door position. This is going to tell us which way we want the door to be. Do you want your applied door to have the... If this wasn't a face frame sample here, you would have a face, a frameless door going overlapping your side panel if you selected behind frame. Or alternatively, you can have your panel be flush at the door face, and you would select this option. Now I have another additional opening drop down there. So if your bottom overlaps your side, you would change this to yes right here. And sorry, that is for an unfinished end. Same with the wall cabinet. You would change that one to yes if you want your bottom to overlap your side. I've only ever used this when I'm trying to make a cabinet do something that's not really being a cabinet, such as a floating shelf or something. That's when I'll use that parameter. And the same thing for the top, long top, unfinished end. Here you can add an amount for a miter. That is if you have miters, which, for us frameless people traditionally don't require miters, but you might be doing a mitered end depending on what your manufacturing style is. You can add an additional amount for that. So here we have finished end styles to the floor. This allows you to add the toe kick amount basically from the bottom of your finished end to the floor. This is going to give you an option to add edge banding assignments to panelized ends and applied doors. This gives you an option to miter this corner instead of having an overlap. So if you selected that, then this becomes irrelevant. So next we're into interior. I wonder if I can make this window bigger. No. I'll shrink this one over. Okay, so we have rollout shelf depth minus. What we're doing here is we have a rollout shelf. So this is if you're actually using a shelf with guides attached to it. How much shorter do you want that to be from the back of the cabinet interior to the back of the shelf? It could be 0. So shelf opening height minus. This is going to give you an option to set your bottom distance from the bottom to the actual shelf. And if you, as it says here, if you set it to 0, you'll just see equally spaced openings, which is what usually you might want. Maybe you don't. Next option here is adjustable shelves. So again, you can set your opening shelf on the bottom to a specific number if you want. And then you'll have your option for the second shelf. Everything's going to go automatically if you just set it all at 0. So I don't know exactly why you'd want to change it, but to each his own, I guess. Adjustable shelf length minus. So as you can see here, this is the sort of clip style shelf pins that lock the shelf in when you push down on it. So if you have those, you might want to set that at something such as 3/16 between both. And then if you have just a regular shelf pin, it may be very little or just an allowance so it's easier to put in. Adjustable shelf depth minus. So this is how distance from the front of the case to the edge banding. Same thing for a wall cabinet. So we have clearance for tray at a door. So if you have a tray, adjustable tray. So this is what we use as as a rollout tray. This parameter will give you the spacer clearance so that it avoids the hinge at the front. Because as you know, if you're putting a rollout tray in, you got to be wary of where your hinge is going to be. So this would be your mid stretcher's depth. So for mid stretcher, I like to keep my front stretcher, my rear stretcher, and my mid stretcher all different depths so that I can just kind of set them on a table and just kind of like put them flat on the table, and then all the different parts are evident just by their depth. So you can set your mid stretcher, your top drawer stretcher, so this will automate the interior of your flush, whether you want flush top, flush bottom, or centered for your top drawer stretcher alignment. Then we have a drawer stretcher alignment. This is going to do the same thing for the lower stretchers. It's just going to allow you to select which one you want it to always be, basically. So here you have option for drawer partition. If you're using MetaBox or Tandem box slides, I would recommend you do a double stretcher here, because then you don't have to worry about, shared gable drilling on the front fixing brackets. So I would highly recommend double. Otherwise, if you're just doing melamine boxes, just go single. Just giving you a double partition or a single partition. Stretcher tenons. Do you want a blind dado, I should say? We do ours blind on just the front. They're too skinny to do a blind dado on both. Rear drawer stretchers. So this is if you want a stretcher at the rear. You might want that if you're trying to set certain types of tracks in there and you need something to set the back side on. Otherwise, I'm not sure why you'd use that. So, yeah, this is where sometimes they don't have that option, but it does give you a little option here. So this gives you the choice to snap your adjustable shelves to a line bore. If you're doing closets or something like that, you might want to activate that. This one probably doesn't have it either. This would alternatively snap your adjustable shelf, but give you a plus minus position. So you might want to have it, 16 millimeters higher based on your hardware you're using. So same thing with all these, snapping to the boring if you're using line bore. This is if you're having shelf nosing. So if you're going to add 3/4 shelf nosing on there or something like that, you can add that in there. Then you have shelf nosing scribe if you want to add a little bit of scribe shelf nosing. Obviously they haven't added any help options up there. It is really helpful to have that. Next, we're in the toe category. So we have toe height. We have 4 3/4 for our toe height. Toe recess. This is going to give you the distance from the front of the case to where your cabinet toe kick notch is, not including the thickness of the toe. Side toe recess. This is your distance from the edge of the cabinet to where Mozaik is going to render the side of this toe kick return. Then you have your finished back toe recess. So if you have a finished back, you can allow a certain amount for the finished toe at the back. Okay, then we have front toe height minus. So this is going to reduce your front toe height by a certain amount if you prefer. Toe skins. So this will allow you to have one continuous piece for toe across the whole board if you have across your whole kitchen, which is typically the way you'd install it. So I would imagine you'd want to have that selected as yes. Manually detached toe kicks. So this is if you have basically ladder kicks or whatever you want to call it. Style toe kicks where you're dropping a pre-made frame on the floor for your toe kick height. You change that to yes. So these are the different, same for ladder kicks. If you're certain separation for your sleepers, Mozaik calls these sleepers these little crossers that connect the ladder toe kick. This gives you an option to miter that front corner as opposed to overlapping and nailing or whatever. Then you have a back toe option. If you want to have an additional back toe added between the cabinet box. Toe dado, so this really only is going to apply if you have finished ends that go to the floor, but you can add a little toe kick dado in there as well. You can also turn it into a qualified tenon where it just notches out the one side. Next you have continuous toe assembly stretcher width. So if you want to have a little stretcher on your toe kick assembly, or different alternatives for how you want the stretchers to be, you can select any of those. Here you have use hardware legs. I have a video on setting up these hardware legs. This is a new feature. So if you change this to yes, it's going to allow you to use Mozaik's built-in hardware legs feature. So if you have adjustable legs that you're drilling in, you're probably going to want to set this up. Next we're into tops. Not much to do in here, but gives you an option for whether you want stretchers along the depth, full top or no top. Same thing for a wall cabinet. Your stretcher width, so if you select change this, it's going to change the depth of that little stretcher piece. Mozaik's not smart enough to know whether or not the stretchers are colliding, at least at this point. So if you set it really deep and you bring them in together, they're just going to overlap with each other. So just be mindful of that. Then we're going to go into nailers. Mozaik's added quite a new pile of new parameters in here. You can add some nailer widths here. You can change which side of your thin back you want the nailers to be on, outside or inside. Nailers on whether you want, let's see here. So yeah, this tells you whether you want them on all cabinets, the wall only, or none. This gives you an option to put nailers on fixed shelves. Gives you an option to split the fixed shelf nailers as well as the fixed shelf if you have a partition. Gives you an option for dados in the nailer. That's not a very good representation, but again, fixed shelf nailers if you want qualified tenon or a dado in there. That's all the options for nailers. Next we're into backs. So you may come in here if you need to get rid of the back. Of course there's ways to do that within the cabinet, but this is another option. This is how you select what style of back you want. So all cabinets you're going to get full back. This way you're going to get base only with a full back. And then you're going to get wall only if you select wall only. Then you get none if you select none. Next we have back recess. So the back recess is the distance from the edge of the case to a bit of an offset in case you want to scribe or just have an open back or something like that. Or space for your dado slot. So this would give you the option to change the type of end joint that you're doing. You can pick a plant-on back, so it's just going to be a butt joint. You can make the back the case depth flush with the back, and then qualified tenon dado, which is what we use there. And then the same thing for those as well. I'm going to skip over those because they're all the same. Then we have back top joint. Same idea. It's giving you an option for flush back, qualified tenon. Be mindful that you might end up with flip side machining if you select the wrong option here. We just do plant on back so that and screw it in to avoid flip side machining. Then we have full height plant on back, whether you want it to go all the way to the floor. This sets your qualified tenon setback, so where you want your blind dado to stop. This is the thickness of your qualified tenon. This is whether you want partitions to be dadoed into the back. Be mindful that you're going to get flip side machining if you do that sometimes. Same thing, fixed shelves, and again you're going to get flip side machining if you do that sometimes. Then we have finished back. Whether do you want to finish back with a plant on back, a flush with the end. To me, I would think you'd want to have a full plant on back for full coverage or miter. And the same thing for a finished end. Next we're on to scribes. Not much to do with frameless construction, but it will give you an option to offset the top down. I mean, I get a bit of face frame style stuff here, so we'll just go into the, that's pretty much it, like really just that top scribe for wall and tall cabinet. Dados is where you're going to set up your dado style. You can just copy mine if you'd like. I'll just scroll down here. You can pause however you want. And let's go top dado. Do you want a dado on your top? I don't know if I'm going to go through all of these because they're all just different dados. Blind dado setback. This is the distance between the front of the case to the start of the dado. Same thing from the rear. Qualified tenon thickness. This is the thickness of your qualified tenon that's going to insert into your dado. Frame notch adjustment. So again, face frame style stuff, which we're not talking about right now. So this is adding a little bit to your dados to allow clearance to fit them a little easier. All these D-slop. And then you have your qualified tenon, what you want to be qualified tenon options. So you can click that there. This should be selected as yes. It's going to give you an option to tell you whether or not it's flip side machining. And if you set it as no, like I have it, just be mindful that Mozaik will not tell you whether it's flip side machining or not. It should be selected as yes. It's just that I have a few parameters that are, such as my leg drilling, that are set up on the reverse side, so I'm going to have to reset that up in order to get this to come out properly. So I will eventually have this set at yes. And the same thing for frame. Do you want the frame to be qualified tenon? Next to fasteners. This is where you go to select which type of fasteners in your hardware library you wish to apply to the cabinets. So you can select each joint template here. You can have up to 8, along with a panel template, I think it's called. Yeah, panel fastener template. So you can have that and select it here. Oop, one too many back. Boring. So this is where you set up your hole boring for shelf pins and closets and stuff like that. So you can set up your holes, whether you want let's go here. Whether you want line bore, do you want shotgun bore, which just is short at the ends, a series of holes, which is what we use, 7 holes, or actually we use this here, 7 holes per shelf, and a series of holes would give you a specific amount that you want to distance them apart. Your hole diameter, hole depth, line bore from the front edge of the case, so that's the distance from the edge of the case to the center of the line bore. Same thing for wall and tall cabinets if you open that drop down. And then this one here is from the rear. Next we have, there's a lot of options in here for equal distance if you're doing full line bores. So you might want to go through these to see what options you want to select. For me, I find just like 7 holes per shelf is more than enough for me. You can select which way you want to reference, from the top or the bottom. This is a new feature here with mirror bore. So say you have, it's not showing you, but say you have a pair of doors, or sorry, say you have a single door on a cabinet. Mirror bore will allow you to drill the hinge plates on both gables without adding a second set of operations. It's just going to automatically drill 2 hinges, drill each cabinet for like a pair of doors, so you can decide on site which way you want to flip the door. Closets. Shout out to the closet people out there. Holy, there's some complicated setups for closets. I've experienced that from people giving me a call, and yeah, there's some real complicated setups with closets. I didn't realize. I thought you just go in and whack a closet in. No, it's not that easy. So I would say this is the menu where you're going to be going through and setting up some of your closet stuff. Here you have like a hang rail notch. That would be for I believe that's an aluminum extrusion or something that you can run behind your cabinet if you want to run it and hang it on the wall, kind of thing, IKEA style. This gives you the depth of that notch, height of that notch. So option if you want to activate it, width, length, and then distance from top of the cabinet to the rail. Then you have an optional baseboard notch. So if you're trying to avoid a certain baseboard height, you can just set up a big notch that will avoid that baseboard and having to cut it. And then the width and length of that baseboard notch is set up right there. Radius for vertical corner panel. I suppose this would be if you wanted to radius that bottom edge. I'm not sure. So then you have closet through bore. So if you're doing a single gable that's kind of shared between multiple cabinets, you'd want to change this to, or set this properly so you're getting the proper through drilling. Closet rod position. This is going to tell you the distance from the top of the shelf to the actual closet rod. Closet rod length minus. This is going to give you an option to reduce the length of the closet rod cut list so that you can cut them to the proper length when you're getting the output from the cut list. Next is frameless rails. So a frameless rail would be if you have a frameless style cabinet and you want to add a frameless rail to it. I'll give you an example. So I have my sink cabinet and I have a frameless rail right here to attach my false front to. That would be what you'd want to activate in order to get that. This gives you an option for the height of the frameless rail, the width of the frameless, let's see here, the height of the lower frameless rail, so you can have one on the top or the bottom. How do you want it to join? whether you want it to overlap the sides or do you want the rail to come into it. And then you can decide whether you want a dado and where you want the frameless rail, where do you want to place the frameless rail. And then you have your blind dado setback and which rail applies to the blind dado setback. So then we're going to go into other. I'm going to do a whole video on the other category because there's a lot you can do in here. It doesn't look like much, but I've got a few loaded. This here gives you the option to create custom parameters, and this is the way to activate them. If this is selected as no, your custom parameters won't do anything. Here's your edge band assignment template. So this is where you're selecting what edge band assignment you want. This is an option to activate modular sizing. In your library, Mozaik has a new feature where you can add modular sizing, whether you're 12, 15, 18, 21 inch cabinets, you want to have specific sizes, you'd activate that and turn that on. These ones here are all added by me, and I will show that in a future video, how to utilize that. So next we're going to go back and we're going to go over the face frame specific options. So in order to activate that, I have to go to face and change this to face frame. Now I'm activating all the face frame options. This gives you your top rail width for wall cabinets, bottom rail, so that's the bottom rail width, so that's distance from here to here. Next we're going to do finished style width. So that would be if you have a finished end, how much do you want your style width, or how wide do you want your style width to be? Unfinished end style width, so if you have nothing there, is it changing the width of that style? Unfinished style width between cabinets, so are you screwing the cabinets together? Maybe it's a 3/4 inch style when there's cabinets next to it. Center rails, so this would be the rails that are separating your top drawer and your drawers or doors below. Center style, so this would be if there's a vertical style between, how wide do you want that? And it's the same throughout all the different style widths. This here is if you want to extend blind end clearance. So as you can see, you got a blind cabinet here. This will allow it to extend a little bit of extra space there to allow for, you know, better fitting when you're installing. This allows you to add a additional width to this style if you're in a blind corner sort of arrangement. Perhaps you want it to be a bit wider so that it'll meet, that filler width would meet into the corner, or more clearance for the doors. Same thing for a wall cabinet. So this would be the same scenario, but the cabinet to the other side. And then the same thing for a wall cabinet. This would be how much do you want your face frame to extend into the open space? Do you want it to extend all the way to the end, or do you want it just to stop beyond where this face frame stops? Do you want to add rails? You want to add tenons to these joints here. All this is doing is adding a little bit extra so that you can machine down those ends. So this was that option we showed before, adding a little bit to your styles where you're at a wall. It'll just push it out a little bit further for scribing. And then we showed these beads as well. And what other options did we miss? Scribes. So this is where you're adding the additional amount required for your face frame to overlap the side for a finished end. Another option for an unfinished end. Scribe for the top. How much do you want to inset your top to pass the frame and the sides as well, actually. Stretcher scribe, this would be the same thing. How much do you want to push your stretcher down? Same thing for the front. So this would be your back top scribe. It gives you an option from the top of the cabinet to the top of the scribe. So here you get an option for setting up your corner cabinets. I'm not even going to pretend to figure out how this would work with as a lowly loser frameless style cabinet maker. You got to use your big face frame style brains to figure that out. This one's giving you, looks like an additional amount for 45. Bottom, interior scribe for bottom, so that's your scribe distance from the inside to the frame. Where you want your reference to be. Do you want to be from the inside edge or from the outside of the cabinet? Top scribe reference, the exact same thing. And then interior scribe, same thing. So that's basically it for the parameters menu. I hope this helps you guys out. Thanks for watching. Have a great one.
If you're eager to dive deeper into Mozaik, enhance your shop, or explore the possibilities with CNC routers and 3D printing, you're in the right place. Your feedback drives our content, so subscribe to stay updated with the latest tutorials and tips. Watch out for our next video.